I want to spend a few minutes talking about the Freedom of Choice Act, or FOCA, FOCA. That's the acronym for this bill. But this is the bill that Barack Hussein Obama promised Planned Parenthood that he would sign if he became president. He said this would be the first thing he does as president if this bill was sitting on his desk. But a lot of people have heard of the FOCA bill, but they don't know exactly what's in it or how radical or how liberal this bill actually is. It is very, very radical and very liberal. And this is from the Wikipedia website. It says the Freedom of Choice Act is a bill in the United States Congress, which, if enacted, would abolish all restrictions and limitations on women in the United States to have an abortion prior to fetal viability, whether at the state or federal level, or after the point of viability when the life of the mother is endangered. The one word that you need to see to tell just how radical this bill is the word all, A-L-L. This bill, if enacted, it would abolish all restrictions, all limitations on abortions, and that being at the federal and the state level. This bill would trump state laws that have already been passed in the individual states. This bill is very radical. And when you look at the sponsorship of this bill, you see your usual wicked liberal suspects. You see names like Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, Hillary Clinton, and you also see a name that when I first saw it, it was very interesting to me. It's Joe Lieberman. And I thought, what in the world is Joe Lieberman's name doing as a sponsor on this horrible bill? Because when you think back at the campaign, John McCain was running as a pro-life candidate, but he had Joe Lieberman with him going all across the country campaigning for him and with him. And that is just crazy. And that's the reason why many conservatives did not vote for John McCain, because they didn't think he was a true conservative. And that's crazy, and having Joe Lieberman going all across the country campaigning with him, and he's supposedly being a pro-life candidate. The particulars of this bill that show how radical it is here in this section. And again, if this is passed, it would invalidate every restriction on abortion at the state or federal level, bypassing Roe v. Wade by miles. The first one here is that it would do away with the parental notification laws. Many states have passed parental notification laws. And to stop and think about how radical this one is, many of these public schools, they have a zero tolerance for drugs. They will not even allow a child to bring an aspirin to school. And if the child gets sick and have to go to the school nurse, they have to have a note from the parent giving them permission to give that child an aspirin or any kind of medical attention. But yet these liberals are going to allow a minor to have an abortion without notifying the parents. Radical. That is very radical. Another one here is going to do away with the waiting periods many of the states have passed that require a woman to wait a particular amount of time before having the abortion done. And this one, it will do away with the requirements of these abortion mills to disclose of the physical and the emotional risk inherent with abortion. This is crazy. Even any kind of surgery or medical procedure that you have done, the doctor is required to tell the patient of all the problems and the risk that are associated with having that done to them. This is crazy. It's just plain common sense that you would disclose to someone the risk involved in something that they're going to have done to them medically. And I know I've read recently a study was done where many of the women who have abortions they are at a higher risk for other diseases such as breast cancer. There was also another study done recently about women who have mental problems after having had an abortion. And these abortion mills would not be required to disclose this and give this information to the patients before they would have an abortion if this bill would pass. It's crazy. In this bill, it would do away with the partial birth abortion ban. Now, this partial birth abortion is the most horrendous abortion. It is horrendous. It is evil. They partially birth the baby, feet first, and the demon-possessed doctor or whoever it is takes an instrument and stabs that baby in the back of his head, the back of his neck, and drains his brains out, destroying that child. That is horrendous. It is horrible. You don't even do a dog that way. And just to show you how messed up our society has become, people are being arrested for treating their dogs and cats badly, for not giving them food and shelter, or they're being put in jail for mistreating an animal, but yet they can do this to an unborn child. You wouldn't even treat a dog this way. This is evil. It is radical. And another one, this next one is what the Catholic leaders have been complaining about or talking about. This bill would challenge the right of religiously based hospitals or clinics to refuse to perform abortions. And many of the Catholic leaders have been on TV saying that they would shut down their hospitals and clinics before they would be forced to perform an abortion. But can you imagine a Christian doctor or a Christian nurse being forced to perform an abortion? They have a moral or religious opposition to abortion, but they will be forced to perform an abortion, or they will lose their jobs, or maybe even have criminal charges pressed against them. Are we in communist China, or are we in the United States of America? This is radical. It is unreasonable. It's horrific. And the last thing here, it says that this bill, if it's passed, it will force the repeal of the Hyde Amendment. And what the Hyde Amendment does is it restricts the use of federal funding for abortions. So, let's see. These radical liberals, they want to force people to perform abortions, and they want to take our federal tax dollars, my federal tax dollars, to pay for these murders. This bill, it is very radical. It seems like it's unbelievable that something like this would even come up to be passed in our Congress. It's horrible. There's a bit of good news that the liberal Democrats, they did not get their 60 members of a filibuster-proof Senate during this past election. They didn't get the 60 members that they needed to be able to ram through their socialist agenda. So this bill, it may not come up because the liberals know that the Republicans can filibuster this bill to keep it from seeing the light of day, to keep it from being passed. Thank God for that. Abortion is shedding of innocent blood, and the Bible shows that God is against this, no matter how much you try to clean it up. The Lord is going to judge us as individuals, and also He's going to judge this nation as a whole. There is forgiveness and salvation in Him, but there are going to be very few who would take God up on His offer of salvation and forgiveness, because repentance is required first.